Alright, so we're going to go over how to set up your journal. First and foremost, in a Sharpie, you should have science on there somewhere. Your class period, which this one is 8th period, you don't need my name on there, but you might want your first and last name on there. The 22 to 23, that's the year. On the very first page, you're going to have your first and your last name, science dash whatever class period you come to science, and then August 23rd or August 18th, whatever the day that we set it up in class. That's on the first page. Notice there is no page number on this. This is our title page. There's also nothing on the back of this page. It is intentionally left blank. So we're going to start with numbering in the bottom outside corner. We're going to number front and back all the way to 20. If you want to pause the video, you can go ahead and do that. And then this very first page, we are going to glue down your copy of the safety contract. So you're going to put a thin line of glue around just the outside edge. You don't need to X in the middle. You don't need to zigzag in the middle. None of that. Just a thin line of glue around the outside edge, and it is okay if it covers up the words that you wrote, safety contract. Okay? Notice we put the date in the top outside corner. 8/19 was when you got your safety contract. On the back of that, you should have written lab safety video, and you wrote down all the violations that you saw in that video on the 23rd. You drew a line, and below here you wrote your answers to questions 1 through 8 for the cartoon. Now some people extended that onto page 3, and so I'm going to actually glue this onto page 3 as a flap. Now let me show you what I mean by a flap. It's going to go here. Notice there is a line here. We're going to fold it on that line. That becomes the place where we put our glue here in just a minute. We're going to trim around the outside edge by going up this solid line and across the top. And then we're going to just put a thin line of glue on our flap. And we will glue it onto page 3. Now, if it sticks out at the bottom, you could also trim off this very bottom part so that it doesn't stick out. So that's fine. So that's page 3. All right. On the back of page 3, you're going to, you probably already have these numbered, 4 and 5, 6 and 7, all the way to 20. You don't have to go farther than that. On page 4, you're going to get out your timeline of the microscope. You're going to trim around the solid lines. Mine looks slightly different than yours because mine's the answer key. Yours doesn't have those arrows on it. We just numbered yours on the side. All the way across the top, be sure you keep that title, History of the Microscope, all the way down the side. And now you're going to put a thin line of glue around the outside edge. Again, it doesn't take a lot of glue. If you have glue oozing, then you're using too much glue. So you're going to place that on page 4. Okay, page 4. On to page 5, you will receive a copy of this page in class. We're going to trim around the outside edge. We're going to get rid of the blue at the top. We're going to get rid of the excess white on the sides, across the bottom, and up this side. We don't need the information that's on the back, so we're just going to put a thin line of glue around the outside edge. And we're going to glue that onto page 5. This will help you when you go to study for your quiz over the microscope. And if you want, you can highlight all of the important words. Okay, so we've highlighted the important words. Notice here it says mirror or light source. We don't really use ones that have mirrors anymore, but they all have a light source. And so you're going to use light source. The smallest is the lowest powered. The largest is the highest powered objective lens. One thing people commonly confuse, they write slide clips instead of stage clips. It's the stage clip. It's the clip that keeps the slide on there, but it's called a stage clip. Okay? The next thing you're going to do is flip over to page 6, and we want to reserve or hold this page for the microscope or letter E lab that you turned in. So we're just going to write letter E lab on there. And that's on page 6, so hold that. So now we are actually on page 7, and in class you're going to get a sheet that looks like this. It says, you know it's living if. Before we put any glue on it, it's easier to write if it doesn't have glue. So you know it's living if it is made of one or more cells, okay? But these are characteristics of things that are living, and so we're going to go ahead and list those here in a minute. The word biotic means living or once was living. It also means that it is made of cells, but I'm just going to put cell parentheses S because it could be just one cell, right? Unicellular. So now that you've got that written on there, we're going to fold this on that line, and we're only going to put glue on this small rectangle around the outside edge. Okay, we're going to glue that onto page 7, and that's how it's going to look on page 7. Now that it's glued in, you can go back and you can cut on the dotted lines. Now, living and biotic, a lot of people would say, oh, those are synonyms. They mean exactly the same thing. Well, they do and they don't. So if it is biotic, it could be alive right now or it could be dead, right? So biotic means that it once was living or it is living now, whereas abiotic means it's not living but it never was living, okay? So to know if something is living, we would say it has these characteristics, and each one of these letters reminds us of the word that is underneath it. So M is going to mean that all living things have to be able to move or have movement. Now, it may not be a lot, like plants, they don't move a whole lot, but they have the ability to move. They can turn toward light. All living things have the ability to reproduce, or else the species couldn't survive, okay? Now, there are some instances where, say, a couple can't have children. That doesn't mean they're not living, okay? But as a species, you have to have the ability to reproduce. S means you can respond to a stimulus, or you're sensitive to your environment. Okay? The ability to respond to your environment means you can respond to a stimulus. If it's cold, you'll shiver. If it's hot, you could sweat. G stands for growth. All living things have the ability to grow, but not everything that grows is necessarily alive. Okay? The next R is cellular. You say, that doesn't start with an R. Respiration. Okay, is the ability to break down and use energy. Cellular respiration. All cells perform cellular respiration. E, every living thing has to be able to eliminate or excrete waste. And finally, N, everything needs nutrients or energy from those. All right? Everything needs nutrients.